After 3 years, this project behind me has finally started to take shape. What you see back here is the skeletal frame of a custom home that I designed. This is an emotional time for many of my clients and the builders that I work with, because finally, after all of the planning, they're starting to see the home that we've designed take shape. My name's David with David Stumpf Architecture, your guide for everything architecture related. Today we are on site at a custom home that I designed to do a framing inspection and walkthrough. Last time we were on site, it was just the foundation and the footers. We hadn't even backfilled the project yet. Right now, we're here for our framing walkthrough, and as you can see behind me, we've got 3 days of framing already underway. We've got a couple more days until this house is completely under roof. Currently, we're standing in the motor court. I've got my blueprints for the house. This home was designed for a car collector. Behind me here, we have our hobby garage. And just to the left of the hobby garage is the main garage for the home. The hobby garage is designed so that it can incorporate 4-post lifts on the interior of this building. So you can technically hold 8 cars in the hobby garage. On the main garage, we have 3 cars that can be stored in there for a total of 11 cars in this house. Our builder is Larry Limpert. He's one of the best builders that I've worked with so far in the time that I've been running my architectural practice. He has really taken this job site and kept it moving very quickly and kept it on schedule. He's also catching a lot of the mistakes that the framers are making. I spoke with him a couple days ago just to catch up and see where we were with the process, and he informed me that we were almost under roof. So that's why we wanted to make sure we got here today. They're 3 days in for the framing portion of this project. It's a really good crew. They move fast. They're not making a lot of mistakes, but they did make a couple, and I'm glad Larry was here to catch that. And you might say, 3 days, that's way too fast to build a house. Well, we're working with wood frame. These guys know exactly what they're doing, but sometimes they don't read the drawings entirely. The garage here that has a 9 and 10-foot ceiling, they did not realize that we have an 11-foot ceiling in this garage. And you might ask yourself, why do you need 11-foot ceilings in a garage? When you're designing a home for a car collector, you have to accommodate for the lifts that they want to put into their garages. Our client has several antique cars, and they want to be able to put them in here, store them, tinker on them. But that means we have to account for the height of the car while it's on the lift. I'm going to show you what the fix was and where you can see the mistake, but how they remedied it. As we head into the garage here, you'll note a few things about the garage that look a little different than typical framing. And the first thing I'm going to point out, the fix for the shorter height. Up here, you'll see that that's framed almost like an addition on the top of this wall. So we have 10-foot studs that are coming up, and then we have about a 1-foot stud height up there. That is specifically the fix that we're talking about. And you'll note that we don't have that on the front side of this wall here. And that's because Larry caught that while they were framing these walls, and they were able to remedy it over there. But what they did was they created essentially a secondary platform frame above. They raised that up. All of our exterior walls are framed with 2x6s. You'll see right here that they spliced in these studs periodically to make sure that we're carrying the connection all the way up. I reviewed it. It looks absolutely fine to me. It's essentially a platform frame on top, and then we carry on the outside our sheathing all the way through. So we do have shear strength and structural sheathing on the outside. You'll see we have our LVL header that I specified that goes in for our garage door, and then our framing is the full height. We've got our roof trusses in already, and we've got a nailing plate over here that they've installed for our drywall ceiling. We've also got the nailing plate over there. That's good. The only thing I don't see so far are the hurricane ties that are to be installed at all of the trusses. So that's something that they probably need to come back and finish. They still got plenty of work in the framing process to do. I just want to make sure I make a note of that. The roof is good. The sheathing looks good from here. I've sent the drone up. I already kind of inspected this portion of it. That all looked good. They use the clips that space the sheathing, so that looks absolutely good. They have good spacing on all of that. We do have an air gap left at the very top there. That's for our ventilation, our ridge vent in the roof assembly. So we're actually gonna let this roof breathe. It's good to see that. Sometimes they don't do that and they have to come back and cut it later. At the end of the last video, we pointed out where our concrete pour stopped and it dropped down and continued over. This was the opening that was left in our concrete foundation wall while they were doing the pour for our garage door, for our man door over there, and for our garage doors over there. What that allowed us to do is make sure that we had the actual width for the garage doors when they're installed later. And as you can see, we have our stud pack. This is essentially a column of 4 2x6s that are tied together. 3 of these are jack studs They carry the load from above, so it's essentially acting like a 6x6 post. Then we have this king stud, which is the outside of the column. As you can see, it rides all the way up to our top plates and then comes all the way back down. All of this structure helps to keep our LVL header in place and carry that load and transfer it back down to our foundation wall, which is then transferred down to our footer. Following this column all the way up, we have our header above. What we did here was we designed this header as an LVL. It's a triple ply LVL system that carries all the load from the roof, and it creates that strength that we need when the door is opening and closing. We have a 16-foot wide door here, and when that opens and closes, it puts a lot of stress on the face of this house. We want to make sure that the structure works out. So we're carrying the load and we're helping to shore that up. This header is much different than the headers that we've used for the other windows, and that has everything to do with the length and the amount of load that goes into this. I like to use LVLs. Let me know in the comment section below if you're a homeowner, if you're a builder, or if you're another architect. Do you use LVLs for these headers, or are you still using steel? I find it much easier for our framing crews to be able to put this in themselves rather than having to work with steel. As we move over here to our transom windows, these are 6-foot wide windows. The load that they're carrying is much less than the load that's being carried by our garage door header. And so we're able to use 2x12 headers, triple ply, which carries the load for a 6-foot wide transom window. That's well within our tolerances for carrying the load of the roof above and transferring it down around. Much the same way our framing was for our garage door header, we have our framing here that carries all of that load in this exact same way. Another thing to note, last time we were here on site, we were looking at the foundation walls and there were the anchor bolts that stuck up through. I'm checking right now to make sure that these anchor bolts are holding our framing down. As you can see, this is our sill plate. This is a pressure treated 2x8, and that's set on top of our foundation here. But in between this is what's known as sill sealer. And on this side, you can see that we've got a little bit sticking out here. That's essentially a separation membrane between our wood and our concrete to prevent water or moisture wicking its way up into the wood and rotting it out over time. Right here we have cutouts in our 2x6 framing, and that allows the top of the anchor bolt to come through. So this is held down to our concrete with 1/2-inch anchor bolts that are tied all the way down into the foundation wall. And then our framing is set on top of that. We're gonna leave the hobby garage. We're gonna head into the mudroom here. Now, part of designing a custom home and then working on the construction process is dealing with mistakes. 84 Lumber, our lumber supplier and our window supplier for this project, they sent out the wrong windows for this mudroom. Initially, we were supposed to have these windows lower than the windows on the left here. These windows were designed to allow for a built-in bench, because when you come into your mudroom, you want to be able to sit down, take your boots off. They sent out the wrong windows. So now we have the windows all in the same height. That's okay. We can deal with that in a furniture capacity rather than a built-in. So we're just rolling with those punches. It also is noteworthy that because of the topography of the site, we had to raise this house. I've talked about it in our other videos before. The garage stayed at the same height, the house raised. So what we had to do initially, this coming in from both garages, this was all gonna be concrete, transition at the same height to the floor above. Because the garages are sitting lower now, we're gonna have to build this up. We had tossed around a few ideas, possibly filling this whole thing in with concrete. But what we're actually gonna do is treat this as if it's a crawl space. We're gonna reframe this space at the same height here. They can transition wood flooring all the way in. From the door at the hobby garage all the way down to the other side of the house is a singular linear axis, path of travel, and view corridor from the garage all the way to the master suite. Now, out in this space here, we have our mudroom that I spoke about. We have access to our main garage here, and we have access to our side porch, side entry into this house. And then on this side, we have access to the backyard. We wanna make sure it's very easy to get around this house. If you peek out this way, you could see we have our egress well framed in, we have our waterproofing applied, and our protection board also applied. I'm glad to see that. We've got our closet framed here, but most importantly, we have two pieces of framing that I needed to inspect just over here. This is our elevator shaft. I wanted to make sure this was framed correctly. And then we have our stair access to the basement. I also want to make sure that was framed correctly. The stair access to the basement looks perfect, and our elevator shaft also looks perfect here as well. The only thing that I did note that I want to make sure that our builder is paying attention to is when the concrete slab is poured, we want to make sure that we have a 10-inch indentation in the concrete below. Right now they have our crushed rock set at the same height. We want to make sure that that goes down deeper. And we want to make sure there's also drainage. I don't see a drain down there as well. So that's something I'm going to bring up and talk to him about later. We're going to pan across here and you can see our roof trusses, and they attach on the right-hand side here to what's known as a girder truss. This is a truss that allows us to do these complex roof lines. This is a very complex roof. And if you see back further there, they haven't even peaked out at the top of the roof yet, which is why they're coming back next week to finish that. But right here is a very important element of the building, and this carries a lot of the load from different parts of the house and transfers it down to the walls that are structural. Really, the simplest area to look at it is where we're at right now. Our truss acts in two different directions while it's carrying load. We're heading to the right of me and transferring that load to the wall here, but when we transfer here, this is an elevator core, right? So we don't have the opportunity to use this wall as a structural wall. We have to be careful with that. And so our girder truss here acts as the transfer for that structure, going left to the outdoor wall here, and then going to the right, just behind you guys, to a wall that's a post in that corner over there. Another thing to note is that during the framing process, the stairs are not installed. Sometimes they'll do a temporary stair, but right now we don't even have a temporary stair because we're only 3 days into the framing process. There will eventually be a staircase that winds up here, turns this corner around this wall, and then heads up to what is typically known as a bonus room. That's where our homeowner is going to have a dedicated office and hobby space up there. So we tied that specifically to the proximity of the hobby garage. This whole space kind of acts as the heart of the house, pushing lines of travel throughout, and acts as a kind of a hub of vertical access between the different floors. To your left will be a powder room. In this space here is going to be our laundry room and pantry. We've got a nice window that's framed in there that looks very good as well. And then as you travel through here, we did have a door that was designed to be here to separate those two spaces, but our homeowner decided she wants it wide open. So we do have a very straight shot all the way from our hobby garage down to our master suite. And then if you look up, I designed this intentionally to help draw you into these spaces and help denote the path of travel. So this is going to be a recessed or a coffered ceiling. There's a little bit of difference in the framing. I talked to Larry about that. We've already got a fix from the truss manufacturer, so we're going to widen that up. This really helps draw your eye all the way down to the master suite, but also vice versa from the master suite down to the mudroom area. And that's because this is one open living space. You hear a lot about open plan or open concept, open living, and what we've got here is true open living. Where Sean's standing right there is the kitchen, and effectively will be the island. Behind me is our entry. We've got an open space right here, all LVLs, as you can see, because that's going to be our main stair into the basement. We want to make sure we're carrying all of that load that surrounds from the floor joists, and it's being carried. Right here we have our living room, we have our dining room right here, again with another recessed ceiling. So this is a 10-foot ceiling at its peak. Right here we have a 9-foot ceiling, we have 10 right there. And what that does is it gives a sense of space, a sense of purpose to each of these areas. Because when you have a wide open space and you don't have any walls to break that up or transitions in the flooring, you really have to figure out how are you going to do this in a psychological way. By changing our ceiling planes, that does that. It really helps define the different spaces within the overall open space. As I look through here, it does look like everything's as it should be. That was one of the key things. I wanted to make sure that that was translated correctly to the truss manufacturer. Our living space also has that as well. If we look back over here, when you enter the house, this is the front door. So when you enter the house, we have that low 9-foot ceiling. It's not really that low, but it does effectively act low in compared to the 10-foot ceiling. So when you walk in, you have a compression in the more intimate spaces, or the spaces we really want you to travel through, and you have a release into the living spaces. It acts as a psychological identifier of space. It subconsciously helps you move through those spaces. We're doing the opposite, obviously, with our recess for the hallway, but we needed a way to define a path of travel, and that's the best way we can do that. It's also something, when you're working with a very high-end architect, a detailed architect, those are the things they're gonna be looking for and thinking through to make sure that you're getting an absolutely beautiful home that functions well. Another thing I wanted to make sure was that this wall was framed correctly. You might ask yourself, well, if you have a staircase here and everything else is open, why isn't this open or a half wall or something like that? And that's because we wanted to maintain privacy with certain areas in the home. This hall acts as an access to what will be a full bathroom at the far end, and also an office to my left that can be used as a guest suite. So when your guest is in this space, you don't want them coming out and then being exposed if they have to go to the bathroom or if they're going back and forth to take a shower. So you want to make sure that this is private and they can come and go as they please as they head back into the bathroom here. If you want to take a peek, we also have very large windows over here which needed LVL headers as well. And that was to bring a lot of natural light in here. These windows are very large and it mirrors the window that's in the dining room. And the intent is that we're framing the view beyond. We're early spring, so our trees haven't really grown in, but when you look past into the valley beyond, it's gonna be all greenery in a few months. Here's another thing to note. Our framers clearly framed that a little too low, so it was a good catch on Larry's part to make sure that they brought that back up so that our windows are at the right height. This will have a transom at the top, and then we want to make sure that that's set in the right location there as well. All right, as we move into the master suite out of the big living space there, on my right we have our bathroom and our dual closets, a his and hers closet. Just behind you, where Sean was moving into, we have our bedroom. And this is the master suite, so we want it to feel like it's a master suite, like it's an escape. You know, I designed these homes so that they feel like you're at a resort or a spa or something like that. But in here specifically, we're gonna be looking at two things. We're gonna look at the headers, and we wanna make sure that our coffered ceiling is in. As you can see just above me here, we do have our coffered ceiling. So this is a recessed ceiling. It's got about a foot surround the whole way around, and that allows us to raise that ceiling in the center, so we go from a 9-foot ceiling into another 10-foot ceiling, and it makes the bedroom space just feel that much more elevated for a suite. I really like to make sure that our clients feel very much at home, and that elevates that as you come out of that 9-foot ceiling in the vestibule or receiving area. You walk into this space and it elevates it. Now we have another large picture window here. This is a triple 2x12 header. Looks like all the framing is done correctly. This brings a lot of natural light and views into the backyard. Eventually, don't mind the neighbor's house. Those pines will grow up and they'll tighten up and you won't even see that neighbor anymore. The other key element for this bedroom is these windows. These are designed to incorporate leaded glass windows that our homeowner already has out in California. She's gonna ship those to us once she moves, but to be able to make those work, we're going to install large picture windows from Andersen Windows. We've got our triple LVL header above here to carry that load. You can see all this roof structure being carried by that, moving all the way across. And one thing Larry caught, and we were talking through this the other day, is that Andersen sent out the wrong windows. So this is the second set of windows that were sent wrong. Or the Andersen rep or whoever at 84 Lumber was working with them. And these windows are too high. We have a 5-foot by 6-foot window. So these are 5-foot wide, 6-foot tall. So we have to bring these down and they're gonna end up matching the same height as our windowsill over there. Our homeowner has a cat who likes to look out the window, and this is actually designed specifically for that. It's another reason why you hire an architect who thinks through these things and makes sure that all of your wishes are being fulfilled, or at least we're trying to accommodate them. We've already known that that needs to be fixed. Larry's on it, so that was one of the things we discussed already. If you guys have any questions about how we're doing that, let me know in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. This is a very unique element that I think is gonna look fantastic when it's done. You know, and the last thing I wanna talk about in here for the framing process was our bathroom. Now this is an age-in-place home. Most of my clients, they want to build a home that they're going to be in forever. They don't want to go to another home. This isn't a 5-year and then move on thing. And hopefully that the house lasts for another 200 years after that. One of the main things that we want to make sure that we're focusing on is the floor, especially in a bathroom like this. When you're working on an age in place, you want to make sure that you have a recessed shower pan. We're going down about 2 inches here, and that allows us to build the shower pan back up, slope everything towards the middle, or however, if we have a fancy drain system, we want to make sure we're doing that and accommodating for that. Once you've built that up and you've tiled your floor here, you've waterproofed everything, you have a 0 threshold. So as you age, most people have trouble lifting their feet. We want to make sure that we prohibit any tripping hazards. So as you walk into your shower, we want to make sure that it's at the same plane. And now this will also be a glass frame shower, so there will be a door. You don't have to worry about splashback. The idea is that we prevent any tripping. And we think through that at the very beginning of the whole process so that we don't have to go back and redo it later. And as you can see, it is a early stage thing you have to do. As we come back around here, another thing to think about is the location of where we end this. Our toilet will be here, and we want to make sure that eventually, if the need of a wheelchair arises, we have the space to be able to accommodate an accessible toilet and bring your wheelchair in here, turn around, be able to get on it. Eventually, blocking will be put in the walls, so if you need it, the grab bars will be able to be installed. But these are really the things you got to think about first. A lot of accessibility questions also go with cabinets. How do you get under them? How do you access the sink? But that can be done at a later date. You can remodel those things. These are the things that you got to think through early on in the process. If you found this video entertaining or informative, hit that like button for me and share it with somebody else who might find this enjoyable as well. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe for more videos about this project or how an architect designs a beautiful home just like this. But don't go anywhere because the next video is about to start.